Hey, what's up, guys? It's Bakes here with day number 23 of my 31 Days of Horror. Today's movie is one only from this year, so I am going to say straight up, even though in my reviews I normally dance around spoilers and everything and I try not to give too much away, just because this one is from this year and I know there's probably a fair few people out there that just missed their opportunity to check it out in cinemas. I'm not going to go into too deep of detail with today's movie, just for those who haven't seen it and want to sort of go into it somewhat blind. So today's movie, as I said, from 2023, it is M. Night Shyamalan's Knock at the Cabin. I did get a chance to see this one in cinemas earlier in the year, but this was my first time rewatching it since seeing it in cinemas. So, as usual, I'll quickly go into the plot. As I said, I will dance around some of the deeper details, so I'm not giving too much away. And then later in the review, I'll go into my thoughts. So, the plot for this one: a family of three are at this remote cabin by this lake, and they get visited by four strangers. It's basically a home invasion. They tie up the family members, and they force them to make this impossible decision. I won't go into what the decision is, but they pretty much say that the fate of the world is in those three people's hands. So, gonna leave the plot there. Let's get into my thoughts of 2023's Knock at the Cabin. I know I really didn't give too much away there in my plot description. I'm pretty sure in the trailer for this movie they even give away more than what I said there. But the whole reason I held back is because I remember going into this movie, I didn't know too much about it, and when the characters explain, the decision that they have to make, it made me really go, whoa, that is pretty intense. So for those people that kind of want the same experience and they don't know too much about this movie, I purposely bit my tongue a little bit, but maybe towards the end of this video, I'm not too sure yet, I'm just thinking on the spot here, I might go into a little bit of spoilers, but I'll put a warning up just so it's not spoiled for people who want that surprise of, well, this is a pretty heavy decision they have to make. But I thought I'd quickly go through a few things that I heard people sort of have complaints about. The first one is the dialogue in this movie. I had no problem with the dialogue. I know a lot of people sometimes think with M. Night Shyamalan, he's a very split director. Some people really like him, some people aren't the biggest fans. But most people sort of have a problem with his dialogue. I really didn't have a problem with the dialogue in this movie. It's kind of weird because a lot of people had an issue with the dialogue in this one, but then loved the dialogue in his past movie Old, and I was kind of vice versa, but either way. Another problem that I heard a lot of people have was with the camera choices. I feel like the camera choices were really good in this movie because they're quite dynamic. There's a lot of movement and a lot of creative choices, and I feel like they pay off, especially because this movie takes place in one location. It's pretty much all set in this cabin, and if not in the cabin, surrounding woodlands and whatever. So make it as dynamic as possible. Try different things to change it up. If the camera's static all the time and we're just looking at the four walls of this cabin, it can get a bit tiresome. So I thought the camera choices weren't bad. Another thing that kind of goes along with the dialogue, I guess, a lot of people were split on the performances. I thought the performances in this movie were all pretty strong. It's a movie with only 7 characters. There's people in the background and small little other secondary characters come through, but it's pretty much 7 characters in this one, and I feel like they all do a good job, so that wasn't an issue for me. And the last complaint that I heard from some people who saw this movie was the flashback scenes, and I feel like the flashback scenes really work because it just sort of adds to the story and adds depth to the family that we're dealing with in this scenario. This isn't a spoiler, but it's a same-sex couple, their adoptive daughter, and I feel like it just sort of adds a bit more emotion and a bit more depth to these characters. It gives you their history and how they're so close and everything, and I thought the flashbacks were not only necessary but really worked in the movie's favour. So those are the 4 main complaints I heard from this movie, other than a point that I'm about to get to a little bit later on, but for me, none of them were issues. I thought all 4 of them were nothing that really turned me away from this movie. So we just went through 4 points that I've heard people sort of complain about with this movie, but I had no issues with them. Where my gripe comes in with this movie is the ending and sort of the big grand decision of what is being made. The ending to me just feels quite underwhelming, which is weird. It has a great build up and it leaves you very tense and it leaves you guessing, okay, what decision is going to be made. And I'm not saying, it's the wrong decision or the wrong way to go, because I actually don't know how I would have preferred this movie to play out. The character's decision, I can't really say, it was right or wrong, or how if I was directing the movie, would have wanted it to end, because I'm really not sure. It's a very strange one to be in. Normally, when a movie ends bad, you go, okay, I would have preferred it to play out like this, or I would have chosen to go this way. I really don't know how I would have picked if I was directing the movie or writing the movie, how it would have played out. I just feel like the ending is a little bit underwhelming. It doesn't quite hit the mark I feel like it should. As I said, the decision in this movie is extremely heavy. It's a lot to weigh on your shoulders just as a viewer alone, but imagine being a character in this movie. But something about the ending just really doesn't hit for me, and I've actually heard the same from a lot of other people. I feel kind of, bad, because M. Night Shyamalan is one of those directors that constantly gets hit with, oh, he did a bad ending, he did bad ending. I feel like if it wasn't M. Night Shyamalan, a lot of people would be less harsh or less critical. But because it's him and he did The Sixth Sense and that had a great ending, ever since then people are like, okay, his endings have got to be top tier, top tier. As I said, it's a very weird one, because in a way I don't have a problem with the decision made by the ending. I just really don't know how I would have wanted this movie to end. So it's a very weird criticism to have, but overall, I got to go with my gut. I just feel like the ending is kind of underwhelming. And yeah, I just don't know how I would have preferred it to play out. But as I said, I'm going to kind of keep this review short and sharp. As much as I feel like the ending is underwhelming, I don't want to take too much away from this movie, because originally when I first saw this movie, I had it as like a 6.5 out of 10. But it's a better movie than that, because as I said, it has great performances, and the build-up alone is really strong. As I said, it leaves you feeling really tense. It's a heavy decision being made. Unfortunately, the ending just doesn't land, in my opinion. But again, I can't criticize too much, because I don't know how I would have preferred it to end. But I'm going to give this movie a 7 out of 10. I would be surprised if it makes my top 10 for the year. There hasn't been too many great movies, horror movies this year, I mean. But I'm going to give Knock at the Cabin by M. Night Shyamalan a 7 out of 10. So if you've seen this movie, guys, let me know your thoughts of it in the comments below. As I said, I tried to quickly cover everyone's sort of complaints or views on this movie. It's sort of hard to get around to all of them, especially since this movie only came out at the start of this year. So it's only been a little while, but tried to cover them all. As I said, it's actually a pretty decent movie. It's just that ending doesn't quite hit. But thank you for joining me, guys, and I'll see you tomorrow for day number 24. Peace.